Welcome. Welcome, everybody. This is Ross and Travis, uh, the show where we talk about anything that interests us as apologetics and our Christian faith, and we try to do Christ on purpose. And Travis, as last week, we have a guest with us, Adam Tucker from Southern Evangelical Seminary. We're going to talk about the conference coming up, which is going to be so cool in October. What is it, Adam? 13 and 14? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Excellent. So talk about the conference. Who's going to be there? Why should we go? Fill us in.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you guys having me back. So, yeah, the Steadfast National Conference is 29th Annual National Apologetics Conference at Southern Evangelical Seminary is hosted. So we'll be in Rock Hill, South Carolina at First Baptist Church. So that's about 25 minutes south of the Charlotte, North Carolina airport. So just south of Charlotte. So that'll be October 13th and 14th. So it's 2 long days. So it's an all-day Friday night, and then all-day Saturday. And if you just really can't get enough, then you can come Thursday for a pre-event. Ross, that your friends at Reasons to Believe are hosting. Actually, it's going to be, I think this is the second time that we've done this. We did this last year with them, and they talked about UFOs and aliens.
Yeah, I was there. Year. We were there. That was fun.
That was pretty cool. So this year we're going to have Jeff Zwirink from RTB and Jay Richards from Discovery Institute, and one of our recent PhD graduates, Kristen Davis. And they're going to be discussing God, Christianity, and artificial intelligence.
Good.
So should be pretty interesting. I told them they should get ChatGPT to write their whole talks for them, and just see how it works out. But I think it'll be fun.
Good. And then they could do an animated
samples. Get samples and Fuzz Rana have a really good book on transhumanism, which touches a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it intersects with the AI issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those guys are RTB. They're on the cusp of everything science apologetics.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We're very grateful to partner with them, and we've partnered with them for a number of years. They've been one of our best partners, and Hugh and Fuzz and Jeff all are adjunct professors for us in our scientific apologetics certificate program. So, just very appreciative for what they do and for the stands that they take.
So, Adam, if somebody wants to go to this conference, how can they get tickets?
Yeah, so just go to ses.edu/national conference, and you'll see all the information there. Not sure why my light just went out, but you'll see links to the tickets. You'll see information about the speakers, the schedule. So this conference really is one of the larger apologetics conferences in the country. There are tons of conferences. There are many that have probably larger audiences than we have. We're usually in the 1,000 to 1,500 range. The venue that we're at currently, I think maxes out at 1,100. So, but as far as the sheer number of speakers and sessions, you're going to be hard pressed to find a larger conference. So we'll have 50 to 60 speakers and 50 to 60 different sessions, counting breakouts and large group, main sessions, and then pre-events and all of those sorts of things. So we cram a whole lot into 2 days or 2.5 days, if you want to call it that, with the pre-event. And so it's a lot of fun. Great reunion for a lot of people. Tons of exhibitors, and folks just love to come and be around like-minded people and see people they only see once a year, and catch up and network, and so it's a good time.
Tell us about some of the speakers other than the RTB people.
Yeah, so we mentioned Hugh and Fuzz and Jeff. All three will be there. Frank Turek, of course, one of our alums. He's there virtually every year. We're gonna have Megan Bosham from the Daily Wire with us this year. So she's a reporter with the Daily Wire. So looking forward to that. We have never had her before, so I always, try to mix it up a little bit from year to year. Gary Habermas will be there. He's been with us, I think, every year that we've had the conference, which is pretty remarkable. So he will be back with us. I'm leaving out tons of people, I'm sure, but I'm just thinking through the main stage sessions. Of course, Richard Howe, Travis, our mutual friend and SES provost, will be there along with most all of our professors.
What is Richard gonna address? Do you know yet?
I am not sure yet. He's working on a couple of different things, so I'm not 100% sure what he's landed on just yet. 2 sessions though that I'm very excited about. This is something we haven't really done before. You know, it's very easy for us as apologists, as philosophers, as theologians to stay in that kind of academic mindset, even if we try to bring it down to cookies on the bottom shelf kind of practical things. Sometimes we still don't really quite get there. And so we're going to close the conference this year with 2 sessions that I'm calling Apologetics Has a Face. And so one of those sessions will be with Monique Duson and Krista Bontrager. Sorry, it's late where I'm at, so I
love Krista Bontrager. She's one of our friends from RTB.
That's right. So
she's now doing her own thing.
Yep. So they're working together with Center for Biblical Unity, ministry that they've started. So they're going to be sharing a bit of their story, a bit of Monique's story coming out of CRT, more wokeism kind of mindset, and really their vision for biblical unity and what true biblical unity and biblical justice looks like. So that'll be one session, and then the last session is going to be more of an interview style with one of our alum who's also a board member and pastor, Stephen Cutchins, interviewing a board member, actually recent board member and SES student currently, who's also a medical doctor who used to perform abortions. Along with one of my friends, Daniel Ritchie, who has been making the rounds the last couple of years, written a great book. He was born without arms and was advised to be aborted. So they're going to be talking about pro-life issues and how ideas have very real consequences. So very, very interesting, I think, dynamic there with their various backgrounds and various stories. So looking forward to how that's received and hopefully giving a little more of a personal touch for some of these more, academic kind of issues, or at least perceived academic issues.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like a great slate of speakers.
We're excited. We really are.
I mean, I'm really excited about the Thursday night session, which is the AI stuff. That's huge.
Yeah.
How about some of the breakout sessions? What are we going to be looking at there? Do you have any?
Oh, goodness. So I try to be very flexible. I don't like to dictate what people talk about unless, we just have some very specific thing that we need to have covered. So, everybody has their own interests, their own focuses, what they may be studying right this moment. So I want to be able for them to have a platform and bring that out because obviously if they think it's important, somebody else is going to think it's important as well. So I am not even sure what all the breakout sessions are, but we update the schedule on the website as quickly as we get information in. So we're still collecting some of that information. So not everything's filled out yet, but again, it's ses.edu/national conference. And then there's
one of my favorite apologists is Alyssa Childers.
Yes.
Is she going to be there?
She will not be there this year. She is at another event the same weekend, so she is very busy these days. And I didn't catch her in time, so we'll try to get her back next year. But she always draws a great crowd, has great stories, a great communicator.
Well, y'all's big mistake last year, people couldn't fit into the room when she gave her talk. I mean, it was.
That is always the issue.
Our table was upstairs, and we just saw, and Ross I saw him swinging, throwing hands, getting in there. Just wanted to watch her, listen to her talk. So
I went down through the roof like the biblical.
Oh, there you
story.
go. There you go. Yeah. I'm sure the church appreciated that. That's why they were talking about the hole in the roof. That's all.
That's why you need
I
security.
had to fix it, so
protect this
it's
guy.
okay.
Yeah, you're a contractor. You got it covered. That's right.
So what are some other we know that we're doing AI Thursday. You're not 100% sure on what some of the speakers are speaking on. What are some of the topics that you try to cover? Like, do you say this is a staple issue that we want covered every single time we have an apologetics conference?
Yeah. So, if you have Gary Habermas, you've got to talk about the resurrection. So he's
Yes.
always going to talk about the resurrection. But obviously he offers so much more. He does a lot with dealing with doubt. He does a lot with the Shroud of Turin. He has, several different topics that he discusses. But, he's been working on his big magnum opus of really his life's work on the resurrection. So he'll be bringing some insights from that.
That is supposed to be published in the spring of 24.
Yes, it is. He's been working on that for years
I think at least a minimum of 10 years.
Yeah. So just remarkable. And so, he'll be bringing some insights from that. Hugh, I believe, is addressing climate change, which, as we all know, is not controversial at all. We will be talking about gender quite a bit, the gender issue, like I mentioned a while ago, critical race theory, those kind of social justice kind of topics will be discussed. I'm not sure what Frank Turek is covering just yet, but needless to say, it will be a relevant topic for folks because he always does such a good job of that. And then, Richard Howe always does a great job. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, can I say this, that we haven't mentioned much about Frank Turek, but he is a very dynamic speaker. He has his ministry is called Cross Examined, and he actually goes to college campuses all over the place and gives talks. And he's always, there are apologists that we can mention that we're not going to, but they don't stick around and wait for the questions. And Frank is one of those who will stand in the line of fire. And I've seen him do a very good job handling these very fiery questions that come from young people. And I've even seen people, some of them at the microphone say, that's a good point. And I haven't thought of that before. So he's making an impact in real time in the lives of these young people. It's an honor to have him at the conference. And he is an SES graduate as well.
He is. Yeah. And he will literally stay for hours sometimes dealing with questions. And so, just remarkable job that he has done and giftedness that God has given him to think on his feet the way he does and not be afraid to sit in the hot seat, as it were. He does a really, really great job of that. We are actually having a pastor's luncheon on Friday of the conference. Where it's a separate ticket. It's free, but just kind of an RSVP kind of thing that you can see as you're purchasing tickets on the conference website. And we're going to have 2 or 3 pastors of various sized churches and demographics to have a very laid back conversation about integrating apologetics into the church. What's worked for you? What hasn't worked? What have you tried? What are some ideas that pastors in the audience may have, or questions that they may have? We're working to introduce a small group study specifically for churches, just for basic apologetics. So we'll be introducing some of those things at the conference and at the luncheon specifically, that are resources for pastors, a pastor's network where pastors can come together and encourage each other, challenge each other, ask questions, those kind of things as it relates to apologetics specifically. And then Saturday of the conference, we have a perspective student luncheon. Easy for me to say. Again, free, but you need to RSVP when you're purchasing your tickets. Frank will be there. Richard Howe will be there. We'll have some alum there sharing their stories, just talking about what SES is, why it matters, how it's different, and why you should sign up for a certificate or degree. So yeah, those are a couple of additional things that we'll be doing there.
Adam, why do you
What a
think that
great-
apologetics is such a tough sell with so many pastors and churches?
That is such a good question, and I wish I knew the answer, because I'm not sure that there is one answer. There's so much apathy for one thing. You get so bogged down into just programs, doing church, visiting hospitals, all of those sorts of things that, the pastor has, especially for a smaller church, if you don't have the associate pastor and the youth pastor and the this pastor and the that pastor, a smaller church, especially, pastors have an impossible job. You have to be able to run a business. You have to be able to fundraise. You have to be able to preach. You have to be able to counsel. You have to be, no one person can do any of those things at the level that they need to be done, especially that people expect. And so just to add, you also have to be a good philosopher and be able to teach people apologetics. When they had one apologetics class in seminary, that's a daunting task. So I think a lot of times it just gets pushed to the wayside. Honestly, pastors are fallen people just like the rest of us. So I think there's a lot of intimidation that may go into that of, well, there's somebody in my congregation that's smarter than me when it comes to these issues. I can't, let that happen. So maybe they're not as open to being challenged possibly on, some of these issues. I think that happens probably more than we may like to admit or to think it does. But I think probably the biggest thing is just sheer busyness. It's just another thing to have to think about and to add to the plate. And I heard some advice a long time ago about people who are interested in apologetics, how to help your pastor, how to help your pastor be willing to let some of these things into the church. And the advice was, don't ask them to do it. Ask them for permission to show how you can help them. And, be that point person. And like we said, not in an intimidating, I'm going to challenge you on every point and be a thorn in your side kind of fashion, which is easy for an apologist to do, as we all know. But in a servant's heart kind of way, how can I help you serve the church? And, most pastors would probably be very open to that kind of approach. Obviously with certain parameters and vetting and all of those sorts of things. Because they have to be the shepherd of the flock and the protector of the flock, as well as the counselor and the business leader and all those things that we mentioned. So being that protector is just as important. So just patience and a servant's heart as you try to introduce these things into your church. But if we can get the pastors interested in this, and then they have somebody in their congregation who's willing to step up and take that lead role, man, now that's a match made in heaven there when both parties are interested and want to see their church flourish in these ideas.
Because one of the big reasons that people leave the church is because they feel like they don't have a safe place to ask questions and really explore ideas and say, well, what about this and what about that? And that's what I liked about the SES conference the times I've been, is there's just a lot of people with a lot of different viewpoints, and everybody's trying to love the Lord first and really listening to each other with different ways of looking at it. And I think a lot of pastors need to realize there's got to be a place for people to ask tough questions.
Yeah, I dealt with that in my own life. My grandmother, this was years and years ago before I was born, but she was Southern Baptist, grew up in a little Southern Baptist church, little country church, and my grandfather passed away, and she was not sure of his salvation, so she's widowed. I think still has one child at home in high school, I believe, at the time, wondering where her husband is going to spend eternity. And her pastor has no answers. And so she's home Gets this knock at the door, and it's the Jehovah's Witnesses. Oh, we don't believe in hell. Oh, we just believe in soul sleep. Hey, let us have a Bible study with you. We're happy to love on you. You're a widow. We'll come every week and talk with you and study the Bible with you. And she lived the rest of her days. And my aunt as well, as a Jehovah's Witness, because there were no answers to those questions when she needed them.
Wow. I mean, that's an impactful story. I didn't know that, Adam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really tragic. And, for everybody out there, there really are answers to these questions. I mean, when you study theology, specifically Christian theology, there's no philosophical system that's any deeper than what Christ has to offer, what the church has to offer, what the Bible has to offer. The answers are there. And, that was really encouraging to me. And I just want everybody to be encouraged by that. We live in an era where data and information is more accessible than any time in human history. Go out there and ask those questions. It's good. It's okay. Find people that can do it.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of geeks out there with these answers, kind of like Ross.
Yep. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
There you go.
That's
and there's probably no question that's going to be asked now that has not been addressed by somebody at some time in the last 2,000 years.
Yeah.
It's 90% of the sort of front-loaded questions that everyone wrestles with, 90% of them have been addressed by the church 1,800 years, even probably say within 5 years of his existence. And what you're really seeing in church history is a rehashing of these issues and a refining of them. Mm-hmm. So like we have this hero, Thomas Aquinas. Well, when we look to him for answers, it's not because he was the first to give them, but he was the first to give them in the sort that he did. But he would be the first to say he was standing on the shoulders of giants who themselves already addressed these issues. So the tradition is rich in that sense. But the issues have been looked on from so many different vantage points, and we get to benefit from this great tradition. One of the things that SES has stood for in our last remaining minutes, I do want to address the issue of classical theism, because I know that SES is on the front lines defending the classical view of God that was bequeathed to us by the church fathers and Thomas Aquinas, and even the Reformed theologians who hammered out the theology of the Reformation in their creedal statements. They are affirming these things about God. Could you speak to that a little bit in our remaining moments?
Sure. Well, Travis, I mean, you've done so much more research in this area, especially the historical side than myself. But, I think Dr. Geisler was right when he really was so consumed isn't the right word, but so focused on defending this classical view of God. Because like I said earlier, it may have been in our show last week that the philosophy, the theology, the apologetics, the hermeneutics, all of those things are tied together. And when you start stripping those away and you just try to have a piece of this here and a piece of that there, you're building a house of cards. It's a really bad Jenga game that you're going to pull the wrong piece out and the whole thing crumbles. And that is so much of what we see in modern theology, as we're just trying to answer these individual questions about God. And so we start just this piecemeal process of building this God that really becomes some giant Superman kind of figure. This really good and really powerful angelic spirit being, whatever that is. But you miss so much of the depth of who God is.
What you just said reminds me of, and I know that there's a glitch in our recording, so I apologize if we're talking over each other sometimes. But and I apologize to the viewer, but there's this statement that Dr. Geiser gave one time that's always stuck with me. And he said that some people's view of God approximates Thomas Aquinas's view of angels.
Mm.
His view of angels looked like a lot of people's view of God, and his God was so amazing, so tremendously transcendent and awesome.
Yeah.
That the other views of God that we see around, promoted by other theologians, they look like an angel by comparison.
Yeah, and so much of that, when you have that wrong view of God and you're trying to answer problems like or questions like the problem of evil, for example, you've lost so much of your ammunition, so to speak, to address those issues, because you've given those away with this bad view of God. I tell people all the time, one of my favorite classes at SES was theology proper. And it's just the studying natural theology, the existence and attributes of God. And so you're in class for 3 hours doing this heavy lifting metaphysics, and and that's the philosophical metaphysics, not the metaphysics section in the bookstore with all the new age stuff. That's not what we mean. But you're doing all this heavy lifting philosophy, and with a few Bible passages here and there to show that this is biblical, and you walk out of class worshiping, because you think, man, I thought I understood some semblance of who God is, but I had no idea. And we still just have a fraction of an idea of how amazing he is. But when you start looking at this robust view, this classical view of God, and the philosophical underpinnings upon which that's built, then you have tools in your tool belt to address the problem of evil in a meaningful, rich way, to address even issues of abortion and homosexuality and transgenderism and all of these things that rely on our understanding of what it means to be human, what it means for something to be good, even what it means for something to mean something. All of those things are really impacted by this classical understanding of who God is, and it just branches out from there into the rest of your theology and to the rest of your apologetics and even hermeneutics. And just I feel honestly feel sorry for a lot of folks who miss this, who think they have this powerful view of God that's really more of this fatalistic kind of voluntaristic kind of view of God, again, the super angel sort of thing, because that's the only way they can address these free will questions or whatever the case may be. And I just say, your God's not big enough.
Yeah.
You've made your God too small, which is why you think this is a problem. If you actually understood who God is a little bit more, you would see that there is no problem here. You've invented this problem because of your erroneous view of who God is.
Man, you said so much there that I just totally click with. We're coming near the end of our show, but I just want to encourage the audience, please look into Southern Evangelical Seminary. If you're anywhere near North Carolina, consider being there on the 13th of October to benefit from these teachings live and in person. I think that ever since COVID, everybody's had a longing to go and be around, just rub shoulders with people. And this would be a great opportunity for you to go to a place where you could go up and ask, you could maybe flag down a speaker even and go up and say, I have a question for you. And I've been to these several SES conferences, and the speakers are extremely accessible. They're very willing to speak to people with questions and concerns. So if you can't make it to the conference, consider watching online and giving your support for seminaries like SES that's willing to uphold the gospel of Jesus Christ, the inerrancy of Scripture, and these classical theological doctrines, most notably the classical traditional view of God. Ross, do you want to say anything? Or
I just want to say, even if you don't live close, I mean, I'm probably going to fly out there from Montana. Airfare is not that expensive. Get out there, do it. it's a lot of fun, and the speakers are great, but I enjoy schmoozing with everybody at least as much as the speakers. So it's a really, really, really rewarding experience. You talk about a worshipful experience when you are in the presence of a whole lot of people that are smarter than you, that love God. It's pretty cool.
It is. It is.
Adam, thank you so much for joining us for this show, and thank you for being with us last week. We do apologize to the audience for some of our technical issues, but it's been a delight. It's been an encouragement to us to know that these kinds of conferences are out there that are promoting the faith delivered once and for all to the saints.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Adam. You've been an encouragement to me as well. So keep doing what you're doing.
We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Adam.